Okay, so welcome to our Wellness Wednesday. Just wanted to start by saying thank you so much for coming again. This is our 5th session for 2019, and also wanted to just make mention of the fact that it's International Women's Day this week on Friday, so this is a bit of a warm-up and lead into that with a very impressive female speaker. It's really great to see lots of men here as well, because International Women's Day is not about women only at the expense of men. It's about all of us doing it together for the betterment of everyone. So the theme for International Women's Day this year is balance. Balance is better. And this extends, I guess, into the wellness realm in that a lot of us struggle with work-life balance, especially as we get older and I guess in more sort of senior positions. So today Wendy's going to talk to us about, I guess, her journey through her corporate career, and she's done many impressive things. She's at the top of her game. She's worked for many Fortune 500 companies, and she's going to actually tell everybody a little bit more about her own career journey herself. So I won't get into that now. We're going to hand it over to Wendy Colaco to tell us her wonderful story and speak a bit about balance and how she maintains that in her own working life. Let's give her a round of applause.
Thanks, guys. Can you hear me? Yeah? Great. So thank you for allowing me to share a bit of my story with you. What I think is actually really important is that my story is not that different to many people's stories, and I think you'll find little bits of yourself in what I say today. So I'm the daughter of two really wonderful parents. They're immigrants, and they're really truly proud Australians. And I have 3 older brothers, and I was born here. They were born overseas. I was born here in this lucky country, and I have lived a very lucky life. There's no doubt about that. I've lived in 6 countries. I've worked for consulted with over 300 companies. I've run 2 global consulting firms. I'm in the process of rebuilding a brand new one as well. I have worked in over 50 cities, and I've run marathons all over the world. What else can I tell you? I've scaled the Sydney Harbour Bridge for charity, and I have a scuba diving license and I have a skydiving license. So as you're starting to see, I like to dive in, and I dive in the deep end. And I guess a little bit of a walk down memory lane for me, and a little bit of a history lesson for you and my story. I'll tell you a little bit about my family. My father was a microbiologist and an industrial chemist, and about 50 years ago he was asked to come to Australia as a specialist. And even though they had a very plush life in Goa in India, they had lots of property and nannies and a help around the house, etc. They decided for 3 young boys' lives, my 3 brothers, that they would, for the future of for their own future, that they would come and live in Australia and give them a different kind of future. So 50 years ago, you couldn't actually take money out of India. So in a very kind gesture, I guess, my father and mother gave away property to family members and came out to Australia with 3 kids and $68.10, and arrived thinking they were coming to this lucky country. Very honourable. And my mum assures me that, $68.10 back in those days was, a fair amount of money. You could comfortably feed a family of 5 on $7 a week. So they had, nearly 10 weeks worth of funding in their pocket. But even though my parents were asked to come here, my dad actually couldn't get his microbiology job, even as a specialist. He couldn't work initially in that field, and so both my parents, my mother hadn't worked for a very long time, both my parents worked 3 jobs each, and they tag team through the night, through the day, looking after these 3 kids and tried to make ends meet. They lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in Bondi, gone from the palatious, land and grounds of their homeland. But they couldn't go back because the $68 was running out. So it wasn't lost on me when I came 5 years later that I was actually, really lucky. In fact, it was drilled into me. I was told at every given moment, and I won't put on my Indian accent, but I do it really well, that I had to work hard, and I had to work harder than other Australians because we only had this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And my parents were really beautiful people. They really are. They're still, so loving and kind, but they were, like many immigrants, extremely strict. They were really tough on us. And I recall the story of my brother. He was in 4th class. He got a B on his report card, and he was dragged out in front of the other 3 of us. I don't think I was even at school, but I remember it. And he was spanked for getting a B on his report card in 4th grade. He was told, my father's reasoning for that was, we didn't come to this country to be B-grade citizens. You won't get a job with a B. And so, of course, that was drilled into me. You had to get straight A's. And of course, straight A's is what we got. So my father would tell us, there's no room for error here. And I see that in a lot of my friends that have, been immigrants and come out to Australia. We have to make it work. My father would send us off to school. My mother left for work at 5:30 in the morning, so my father would send us off to school, and he'd line all 4 of us up in military style, and he would look us dead in the eye, individually, and he used to say, "You will be a leader. Now go and act like one." And he was dead serious. And sure enough, we were. We were fortunate enough that between the 4 of us, we were school captains, sport captains, vice captains, leaders in our schooling life. I guess that made my dad really proud. So the bar was set and constantly reset. If we ever achieved a goal, it was on to the next one. We never celebrated the goal or the target by achieving it. There was a never-ending cycle of new goals and targets to meet because we had this lifetime goal to achieve of being successful. What does that mean? I don't know. It was a never-ending roller coaster, and I can't even remember ever going on a family holiday in my entire life with my entire family together because we didn't do holidays. I remember my father on school holidays, he used to build obstacle courses in the backyard to keep us occupied during the day, and he and my mother would go off to work. So it wasn't, it was fun and loving, but it was tough. And I even recall being in year 10 and being told by the school principal one day that I had made sports captain. I was delighted, and she said, make sure you come to the school mass this evening and bring your parents with you. And they announced it. After the mass, I remember going outside, all my friends were around and all of their parents were congratulating me. I was so excited, and I showed my dad these badges, and he said, "Don't be so proud of yourself. You know what? Leaders, true leaders, act with humility. And you know what? When you're in year 12, you need to be school captain as well." So even that little moment, I couldn't celebrate. I had a new target ahead of me. So I knew what he meant. He was like, "Don't stop, keep going." And I was just basically taught to keep pushing for the next thing, the next big thing, and to continue to chase that carrot. And I did. I did it. I set myself up that way, and I chased those carrots. I was never really good enough. I felt I could always be better, do better, do more, be better. And I had to do it humbly and leading the pack. So, it was a never-ending cycle and a vortex. And if you fast forward into my career, it surely showed up in the same way. It was the same pattern. And if anyone works in consulting, you know that this is set up exactly the same way that consulting works. Set yourself unachievable scorecards that you can never ever attain. Work 14-hour days to make sure that you do attain it. Then do a few stretch assignments as well to make sure that you exceed your targets. And then, of course, work on a few committees so that you're actually, making sure that you're demonstrating your commitment. Run a few extracurricular activities, CSR programs, diversity networks, even if you're not in the diversity group yourself, but you should lead them. And of course, you're setting yourself up with a recipe for a beautiful cycle of hell, pretty much. And I guess my only reprieve and joy was really around running and exercise. And so I ran a lot of the time to give myself something back. I was running twice a day, first thing in the morning, between 4:30 to maybe 6, and then halfway through the evening, I'd break my day up. But I'd still work 14-hour days, and, of course, in the meantime, I was traveling around the globe. I had 48 staff around the world, so I had to go and meet with them as well as customers. So it was a never-ending vortex. And if you can't tell already, I was getting sucked into that vortex. And the first time I really noticed it, two things had happened actually, and they're pretty hard to swallow. And the first time I kind of really noticed that I had done this to myself was I was living in Ireland at the time, and I had 2 weeks of holidays booked at the end of an assignment, and my best friend was over living in London at the time, and we had planned this 2 weeks of annual leave going to Spain together. And I remember the day before I left, my CEO came over to me and said, "Wen, there's this assignment in Canada. Our client's really unhappy. You're the only one that can do it. Can you go over?" And instead of saying, "See ya, I'm going off to Spain with my mate," sure enough, I took a plane to Canada and went to the client gig. I'm just going to take a sip of water because my mouth's really dry. This is my friend Sasha. We've been on many, many holidays together, but we never ever got to go on that trip together, and we never went on a trip ever since then, because 3 years ago my best friend died of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and we never ever got to go on that girls' trip. So as you can see, it's starting to pile up on me. All of these long hours, this constant cycle, it was starting to really kind of take its toll. And I remember thinking to myself, if you're not careful, this is going to you're going to run yourself into the ground. And true to form, it's exactly what happened. I did. I got really sick, and I got my very own warning signal. It started with an autoimmune disease, and then it went to I could no longer run. So forget about doing a 42-kilometre marathon, I could barely walk. I lost a large component of my hair, I lost my eyebrows, and I basically couldn't get out of bed. I had crashed, pretty much. And this high-functioning person that absolutely loved life, had literally just crashed and burned. And while I didn't want to stop, I didn't really have a choice. I couldn't function. But I more than loved my job. In fact, I felt like I was my job. And it wasn't, I kind of felt like I wasn't anything without my job, to be honest. I felt my identity was gone. People knew me through my job, through what I'd done. And strangely, for the people that did know me in that way, they became very weird about the whole situation. People on the outside, I looked like a normal person, except for patches of hair not being there, and strangely eyebrows gone, which does look quite odd. And I had lots of questions of, what's wrong with you? Just get on with it. But I could not function, and I had to take some time out. And fortunately for me, I had income protection, and I took a year off work just to kind of get through my health and my health issues and try and recover. In that year, I had to really rebuild myself. I had to recreate boundaries with people. And it was my own fault because I had created really poor boundaries. People could ask me to do things like fly to Canada the next day on your annual leave at a whim, and I'd allowed that. So I had to basically get through doing things without that adrenaline high and learning to kind of slow down and enjoy new environments. But it was there was a silver lining to that, really, to be very honest. I had to struggle slowing down. I'm sure most people can reconcile that as well. I really had to learn to kind of breathe again and really understand that slowing down is actually quite a lovely thing, and find, I guess, joy in really slow moments. I was so used to jumping out of planes, scaling, walls, and, working really ridiculous hours, doing 2 marathons in a small period of time. I just didn't know how to slow down. And actually, I had to find activities that were really useful and productive in that space. In that process, and I know a lot of people use this term, like they found themselves. But I had to kind of find who I was to begin with, and I don't know that I actually knew who I was, and I don't know whether even I liked that person at all. But I know that I now like myself a lot more, and I enjoy the things that I do, and I'm very present with the things that I do. And I think that that's probably the hardest thing, is stopping and saying to everybody else, I know that you need me doing something, but I actually can't give you a bit more of myself. I have to just stop and be here for me. And I'm back now at work, and I run a very niche, small consulting firm. I'm the principal at QMV. So I do have a senior exec role, but I've had to learn to take on that leadership role with a lot more boundaries and a lot more respect for myself. And that's become a really difficult thing for me to go through. It's trying to find that sustainable leadership model that kind of will work for me. And it gets tested every single day, and I do fall back into my addictive adrenaline junkie moments, but on the whole, I really do try and make sure that I respect myself in that process. So I work 4 days a week. I meditate every day. I learn to speak up, even if I'm choking when I'm speaking. I try and do it whichever way I can. And I've had to really change my mindset about what makes me happy, because chasing things that other people put in front of me isn't necessarily finding my joy. It's actually it's solving a problem for them. So I prioritize myself first every day, and I've stopped chasing those carrots. And I'm sure that a lot of people find moments of their own life where they are also in that adrenaline junkie mode. And so if I could recommend anything, I would recommend 3 things. Find a practice, whether that's going for a walk or meditating or journaling or whatever that is that you find yourself in a zone, do that. I had no way of predicting that I would be in that situation, because I was never the person to take off annual leave or take off sick leave. So in that moment, I was really, really fortunate that I had income protection to be able to have that time to heal. And to take the time out to kind of give myself the time to kind of recover. And I guess the last thing I would say is learn to honour and know what's truly important to you, and make sure you take trips with your best friends, go and enjoy all of the things that you want to do. But when you do that, make sure you raise a glass to my friend Sasha, and make sure that you actually learn that it's all about what you want, not a carrot outside of yourself. Living intrinsically versus extrinsically. So have a beautiful life, and one that you truly savour. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Wendy. Does anybody have any questions for Wendy before we wrap up? Yeah?
Personal one, so please feel free to say I'm not talking about that. How did your parents react to that year off, and how did you deal with trying to address their
That is such a good question. Yeah, my dad's a microbiologist, industrial chemist, and a specialist in lots of medical areas. So my dad really couldn't understand what was going on either. And even though he had the medical knowledge to understand that there was something functionally not right, he couldn't fathom the stopping. And he struggled, but I think there were times when he could, when they saw that I just didn't have the energy. And I think what was more true to anything was when my hair was falling out, he really realised, like he could see something physically happening to me, that he was like, okay, there is something wrong here. And he himself, who was very driven by manufactured medication, took on a whole new aspect of natural medication as well and tried to combine the two. So he tried to work solutions for me as well. So it was a journey, and it still is, because I had to re-establish boundaries with my parents, because they expect a lot from me. I'm the only daughter of 4 kids. So they, like, we want you to do this, we want you to cook this, we want you to do, be here at this time. And, it's a struggle, but once you establish the boundaries, I think it was, still a difficult journey, but a good one.
I think one thing that's worth highlighting is actually what led to that was stress, right? So it was the stress of constantly feeding everybody else's needs and achieving and pushing yourself that led to this very physical outcome. So I guess, I know that you're sort of very aligned with this, but it's a bit of a word of warning to actually really manage your stress levels and just watch how you're kind of taking care of yourself, which obviously is what Wellness Wednesday is all about. It's tips and tricks on how to do that. Are there any other questions before we wrap up? No? Okay, so I'm going to tell you what's coming up in the next couple of weeks in a minute, but if we could just give Wendy a round of applause. So thank you so much for coming. That was wonderful. I think we're really lucky to hear really honest and vulnerable stories, from people that have kind of lived these moments. But over the next couple of weeks, we have our yoga teacher presenting next week on the chakras, the different chakra systems. It's not on the app yet, but it will be by Friday, by the end of the week. So I really encourage you to kind of book into that and come and hear her talk about that, and connect with her so that you can come and do a yoga class if you feel so inspired. She teaches here every Tuesday. And secondly, we have the head of the NRL, Todd Greenberg, coming to talk about his zero tolerance policy on domestic violence on the 27th of March. That's actually already in the app, and people have already started booking that. And so I really recommend, if you're interested in hearing him, he's very high profile. If you want to hear him actually talk about why he's finally just resorted to zero tolerance policy and the complexities around that within the NRL, then I really encourage you to book in for that one as well. So other than that, yoga on Tuesday, meditation on Thursday. Thank you for coming. It's great to see you all again, and we'll see you again soon. Have a great day.